morning. Welcome to Brighter Morning with Bhoe. My name is Bhoe Tiwari, and we are so happy to have you with us this morning on U97.5 FM radio, Hot Like Pepper radio, Multicultural radio, and also, of course, you are watching on MCTV, Multicultural TV. This morning we have two very important guests. The first one is Professor Patrick Watson, and we will be talking about the economic situation in the country and some of the hard decisions that we might have to consider and prospects for the future. Professor Watson is an econometrician by training, and he was head of the Institute of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Research, Economic Research, for several years, and he will join us here. The economic issues are highlighted very recently by the Standard & Poor's rating, which the minister has responded to. Yesterday, he indicated that we are doing much better than all of the Caribbean and most of Latin America in terms of ratings. And also, he gave us a $5 billion figure for the amount of money that had been used to address the COVID pandemic. So we face the challenges, and we have information about it, and it's important to talk about it. And the second issue is the issue of school reopening in September, and whether the vaccination process will take place smoothly enough to allow for that. And with regard to that, we have the Minister of Education, Dr. Nian Gadsby Dolly, and she will be talking with us about some of those issues. On the international front, I think the big issue remains the exit of the United States of America with its troops from Afghanistan, and the complete takeover of the political, economic, and social system by the Taliban in Afghanistan. And the consequence of that, which are really the displacement of large numbers of people who are afraid and who want to leave the country and who want to get out because they are afraid of revenge. This morning, when I turned on the television just before I left home to come here, I saw the British Parliament in session. The Parliament had been recalled from recess in order to debate this particular matter, and the British Prime Minister has agreed to accept and relocate 20,000 Afghanis, but that would also include UK personnel and others. But the main thing is that the United Kingdom, Britain, has indicated that it will accept essentially refugees or asylum seekers from Afghanistan. So that is one of the things making the news today internationally. We have the vaccine challenge with our kids now and adults, but it's more pressing with the kids. And of course, we have our economic and financial challenges. A lot of the retail sector has opened up, and the newspapers report a fair amount of buoyancy. That is to say, people are glad to go back out and purchase little things, because remember, people were locked up in their homes for a long time, and you couldn't get anything to buy unless you did it online internationally. sometimes locally. So there was that pent-up, what can I say, demand. And on the other hand, we have a mixed response, which is that many businesses very happy to open up, but many businesses also unable to open because basically things were just too tough. The Minister of Finance announced a revised opportunity for businesses to be financed and to refinance themselves back to, what can I say, back to a situation where they could engage the economy reasonably. And over the weeks, we will discuss those things as well. Chances are the budget will be sometime in October, so we will have the month of September to discuss some of the economic issues coming before us. But I want to join and engage Professor Patrick Watson, who is on the line. He's on the line, yes. So we will talk with him. And he's a very knowledgeable person on Trinidad and Tobago. He is knowledgeable on economic issues. He's a good researcher. But more than that, you know, he has been active in public life. He served in the Senate for several years. So he's accustomed to being what you might call a public intellectual, and we are going to engage him and hear what he has to say. I'm sure he will have some thoughtful things to say this morning. Good morning.
Bhoe, I am here. I don't know if you're hearing me. I am seeing you and hearing you very, very well. I'm trying to sit myself so this light overhead doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing you and I'm seeing you too, and from time to time we'll put you full on the screen.
That's fine. You do as you please.
Huh?
I said, do as you please. I am here.
Yeah, okay.
I am at your service.
Right. Okay. No, and we're glad you're here, Professor Watson. And you don't mind, we know each other a long time. I call you Patrick. You can call me.
That's no problem.
All right. So let us start. I mean, generally, how would you, I mean, we are going through a very rough period here with COVID. Every country is. And we have had our own problems. We've had severe closures and reclosures. The retail sector was just opened up. You have a little buoyancy, but it's going to take some time. And we have big problems, really, of a financial and economic nature. How do you, as an economist looking on at what is happening in the society and living the reality of our experience, what are some of the things in your mind as you look at the Trinidad and Tobago economy, the regional economy, and what's happening globally?
Right, let me start by saying I want to get straight into what I think is the most pressing issue that we face, and it's an issue that we have faced for a very, very long time, and that is the situation concerning our foreign exchange. We are a country, and like many other countries of our nature, our structure, we require foreign exchange to do everything. Without foreign exchange, we grind to a halt. We can even have growth in this country measured by the conventional means, as growth in per capita GDP and things like that. And it will not be sustainable if that growth is not generating foreign exchange. We were lucky over the years to have built up a stock, and from let's go back to about 2015, when the stock was about 11 billion US. It's now down to about 7. I'm looking, the figures may have even changed in recent times. And about 2 billion of that is borrowed money. So we're going to have to pay that back. We also have the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, which is about 6 billion over the years. It has not really altered much. We have gone into it, but because of what I would say, the astute management of the central bank, we have been earning interest on it so that it has not fallen in value to any considerable extent. So that's the amount of foreign exchange that we have. But even though the pandemic really brought a slowdown in the drawdown in foreign exchange, and that's one of the good things, if you can say if there's any good thing about the pandemic, there was a slowdown in the use of foreign exchange. It's going to pick back up as we get out of it and we allow foreign travel and things like that. And there is a general depletion of foreign exchange as our dependence on oil and gas, which is not working out for us, and we have nothing else to fall back on, as the promise. So the answer really is to find other sources of goods and services that will earn us foreign exchange. The magic word again that I've been hearing since I was in my mother's womb, diversification. It's in the headlines again, and I see that the population is being blamed by the Prime Minister for not having diversified in recent times, which I don't accept at all. The fact is that we are not in a position that even if the oil and gas prices should rise to magnificent levels as they have done in the past, because we are not producing enough oil and gas. It's the first time in our recorded history that we are producing considerably less than 100,000 barrels a day. And the gas, as you saw recently in a Guardian report, we are not finding the kind of gas that we want to be able to sell. That even if these prices rise, and they have been rising very grudgingly, but rising all the same, we are unable to take advantage and will be unable to take advantage of even relatively generous rises in prices, which we are not witnessing at this point in time. So unless we find sources of foreign exchange to make us go forward, and I always say that any entrepreneurial activity in this country should not be defined as entrepreneurial except if it is earning foreign exchange. And too many people think that just going into business is good enough. We are not yet in that position, and finding alternatives is not something that you can do overnight. So we are heading into some serious problems as we go down the road because the foreign exchange is being depleted. The government is doing things to stop the depletion. You cannot get it as easily as you should in what is supposed to be a free market for foreign exchange. And the demand is going to be, the demand is not going to slide. And what we are going to have to do is hold on to what we have as much as possible for as long as possible. But a lot of things will happen in the meanwhile. For instance, the price of the Trinidad, of the US dollar in the terms of Trinidad and Tobago currency will very likely increase, and probably increase by an amount that we don't like to hear about. That will signal all kinds of things, and it will open up a black market. It will cause people to store foreign exchange abroad, and all these kinds of things. So that is the most pressing issue. If we do not solve that problem, we are going to have some serious difficulties. The opposite is true. If we solve it, life will be relatively easy for us. The trick is to find that magical good, that magical service that can do it. Now, I should mention to people, this is not necessarily something that you and I can spot. In fact, I think that is a risky enterprise. Many things may appear on the scene that are not on the scene at this point in time. There are possibilities, but we have to consider all of them very carefully, and we have to be able to spend money, including foreign exchange, in seeking after. The magical bullet in diversification is entrepreneurial activity. If you can encourage entrepreneurial activity with the end result of getting a product or a few products or services that can generate foreign exchange, we are doing well. If we don't do that, the stock that we have, which is a fairly healthy stock compared to what our neighbors have, is going to deplete. And that's just what it is. Let me stop there and take some more of your questions.
Yeah, well, it's a mouthful, but you've captured a lot of the issues that are worrisome and the challenge before us, which is how to arrest the depletion and to increase the earnings of foreign exchange so we're not in that position. But I'm going to put three things to you, Patrick, and you can juggle them in your response. Because, I mean, if we have a situation in which the foreign exchange is depleting, that is because our balance of trade and our balance of payment situation is not in our favor. That's to say we are spending too much money on imports and we are not earning enough from the exports. So, I mean, we can do things in import substitution, like agriculture, for instance, which has a annual bill of about $6 billion. We can use the existing infrastructure that we have for exports, let's say manufacturing, and expand a little bit. And you are raising the issue now of new investments and entrepreneurship that are foreign exchange earning. And the third thing that I want to mention to you, that the black market is already here and has been with us for a long time. And last week I had a conversation with somebody who knows how that market operates and is alert to what is happening. And he indicated to me that the price of a US dollar is now $9.50 on the black market. So when you take the depleting foreign exchange, the need for import substitution, the existence of the manufacturing sector, and I should mention the services sector too, to export, but new investments being necessary. And meanwhile, as we hesitate to do this, or we refuse to do this, or we do not do this, the price of the US dollar is going up against our own. What do we do in that circumstance to manage?
All right, let me say something about the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector. I am not as optimistic as many people are about these two sectors, largely because they are both very much consumers of foreign exchange. It's when you look at people look at the amount of money we spend on food, to counterbalance that, what they don't look at as well is the amount of money we spend to produce food. To the extent that we are not, if we are import substituting, as that's the word that you use, by growing our own food, we are going to have some issues if we do not cut down on the foreign input into the production of food. Now, that is less a problem with the agricultural sector as it is with the manufacturing sector.
But
all our goods and services.
Patrick, when you mention the import component in agriculture, you're talking about pesticides and things like that?
Things like that, yes.
Right? Okay. Good. All right. Go ahead.
Things that will make agriculture more efficient and make food production easier. That will help us yes, I have no doubt, but it will not respond. But I'm also looking at where agriculture is in the scheme of things. Agriculture is a very, very small percentage at this point in time of our GDP. Now, when I look at the agricultural sector, I am looking more at the capability of doing something like agro-processing. That it does not matter if you use foreign inputs, and that's not the point. The point is when you sell the product, you must earn your keep in foreign exchange and more. You must earn your keep. You must not be depending on the oil sector, the petroleum sector to give you the foreign exchange. You must be making it yourself and adding to the stock. Now that is the challenge of the manufacturing and agricultural sector. My own feeling is that they have to combine in order to do it. The manufacturing sector has, I don't know any sustained period in history when the manufacturing sector as a whole has been a net earner of foreign exchange. And of course, we have to find ways around beating that problem. You go up into the into the CARICOM countries and even non-CARICOM countries. I was in Guadeloupe. I visit Guadeloupe quite often. Well, I used to before the pandemic, and you could get Carib is a very popular drink there. So there are markets that we have conquered and so on. But overall, there is a demand for foreign exchange by this sector that is not healthy, to say the least. And in fact, they will complain to you when they are not getting the foreign exchange because they cannot do their business as they normally would. And of course, the rationale they will give you is that they provide employment, which is true, so that we exchange the use of foreign exchange for ensuring that people are employed. But no matter how you look at that, that is not something that is going to be sustainable. If the manufacturing sector does not become a sound earner of foreign exchange, we are not going to be able to rely on it as it is currently constructed and structured. And that is the essential point the only true earner of foreign exchange in this country is the energy sector, the oil and the gas. They give us foreign exchange. And that foreign exchange is being used up rapidly. Just yesterday, I was passing through, I drove up through Chaguanas. There's another mall going up in Chaguanas, something called Brentwood Mall. I am not too sure, I don't mean to say anything bad about anybody's business, but these are organizations that, as far as I know, they are going to be consumers of foreign exchange. Everything they do is using foreign exchange. And yes, they may provide jobs, but those jobs are not sustainable if the foreign exchange is not sustainable. So I get back to the essential point of it. If we are looking at the agricultural sector, we cannot look at it as it is now. We are way behind the other CARICOM countries, like St. Vincent, Grenada, and so on, in the production of, let's say, standard ground provision and things like that. There's a romantic idea about agriculture, about something people call food security, which they have never really measured and have never really told me how to measure. And these things are there. And yes, we can substitute, but sometimes the substitution could be the consequence of it could be deterioration in the standard of living. Let me remind you of a very bad example of this in the case of Burnham, when he tried to substitute, for instance, wheat flour for cassava flour and caused a whole lot of dislocation in the country for all kinds of reasons, including the fact that many people in that country depend on the wheat flour to do their basic diets. So you're going to have to make sure that when you go that route, you don't cause the prices to rise. The most expensive items in the market, I go to the market and I shop in, is not the Irish potato. Irish potato is about $2 a pound. Compare that to what you pay for dasheen. Compare that to what you pay for arrows, and sometimes the quality is questionable. And there is a point that we have to go. We like our local produce, it's just that sometimes the quality of it, even the way they present it to you in the market, sometimes covered in mud, the so-called Irish potatoes, you don't get that kind of problem. So you're going to have to respond to this in much more meaningful ways than just saying that we should grow what we eat and so on. You have to ensure that you do not cause deteriorations in the quality of life of people. You must ensure that in making the agricultural sector viable, that is not done at the expense of further use of foreign exchange. This is a similar arguments like that for the tourism sector and so on in the country. If you want to make these things viable, and so the Prime Minister yesterday, for instance, complained about sandals and so on. Now, he may have a point, but I ask myself, was the clientele of sandals going to be non-Trinidadians, non-Tobagonians? The tourist sector in Tobago is largely Trinidadian, and that is not foreign exchange earning. I am not sure if Sanders would have changed that. It may have, maybe for Sanders may have its own clientele who would come directly and so on. But the question when you are talking about diversification, in the front of it all should be, what am I going to get in terms of foreign exchange from this activity? I'll stop there for the value.
Okay. You talk about agriculture. You know, we've had researchers from the University of the West Indies that basically expose us and expose the population that is watching and listening to the fact that they have created the capacity for resistance and resilience in local crops. But there's no application of that knowledge among the farmers in Trinidad and Tobago. And it seems to me that the Ministry of Agriculture is totally disconnected from that. The second thing that we were exposed to is that you have products that have known success in exports abroad and were doing well. Three of those products are hot peppers, which we can produce in terms of world quality having to do with peppers and flavor. The second one is cut flowers, especially anthuriums, where we were the most successful people in that market abroad, but we lost it. And the third area, of course, is the area of fine cocoa, which is being explored now, and we are making some success in that. But there is a gap between the knowledge that we produce and the application in agriculture. In Trinidad and Tobago, there is no connection, for instance. So, for instance, the guava that Sam Barrett created, which is the best guava for processing guava jelly, guava jam, guava cheese, but which is not a good guava to eat because it's a little sour. You could hardly find a plant in Trinidad and Tobago. There is no plantation that exists, and there is no production of that. So that there's a big gap between knowledge and the introduction into agriculture and the application. Should we, is there a problem there that we have to solve? Mr. Imbert, for instance, has allocated since the last budget, and we are coming to the next one now, $500 million from for agriculture. I don't think 1 cent of that has been disbursed so far. And the people who go for loans to deal with agriculture tell me they have a lot of problems. I have a personal friend who is involved in fishing, that's to say, fish farming, who have had no end of problems, although he has crossed several hurdles with getting the amount of disbursement required in order to make the business successful. So there's a problem of finance, there's a problem of knowledge, there's also the problem of technology, and then you have the persistent problem of drought in the dry season, no irrigation, flood in the wet season, no compensation. Couldn't we solve that problem? It seems to me as a little country, these things are not unmanageable to solve. What is the issue?
All right. Firstly, these are not unrelated to the issues that I am raising. If the agricultural sector is not viable, it is largely because of some of the problems that you have raised. The problem of irrigation, the problem of persistent flooding, the problem of water in the wet season and no water in the dry season. We don't do the water harvesting that is necessary. We are going to have to solve a lot of these problems associated with making agriculture a more viable enterprise in this country. Remember, though, that we are coming from behind. I hear you about the guava and the fact that it can be used to make guava jelly, which is part of the agro-processing that I think that you're talking about. We talk about the cocoa. The cocoa, there are some issues with the cocoa that I don't fully understand, that we are on we make what many people regard as the best cocoa in the world, in the sense that it goes into making some of the best chocolates that you and I, well, probably not you, but I cannot buy at all, and that is a real bonus that we have. But these are exceptional things in the agricultural sector, and yes, we are not taking advantage of it as we should. And when I talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, that is what I'm talking about. If in the agricultural sector we can produce a guava that people wish to buy in the form of guava jelly and so on, then that is to be encouraged. And yes, you are right. All governments that I have known have paid a lot of lip service to agriculture, and yet to appoint someone Minister of Agriculture is almost a punishment. They don't want that job. That is not the one that they want. And it is because agriculture as a sector does not have the glamour and anything else that these things have. A lot of our graduates from the University of the West Indies, they are looking from the agricultural faculty, are looking for jobs in the Ministry of Agriculture and not going out as used to be the case when when that faculty was the ICTA, when these people went out all throughout the empire, the then British Empire, to serve and to build the agricultural sectors all over the tropical world. And we are not taking advantage of these things. So if one thing, though, I don't see in the studies of the University of the West Indies when they talk about making it valid, there is never the issue of some of the inputs that are going to be required. What is going to be the cost in foreign exchange of these things? And many of these enterprises may not be possible, may not be done, because to develop them requires inputs now. And I think that when people are encouraging us in that direction, they should give us a cost analysis in terms of foreign exchange. That yes, these things can earn us money and they can be exported and earn us money. But are we chasing after products that will not be so productive as all of that? You want, as I said, you want to finance yourself in foreign exchange and provide a lanyard to the rest of the economy. And I am thinking not only in the agricultural sector, there are things like the creative, the cultural sector, let me call it that way,
Yeah.
where there's a lot of capability, where you have people like Marshall Montano and Kess who earn their living abroad. They are earners of foreign exchange. They are self-satisfying in foreign exchange. But do we benefit from that foreign exchange? That is an issue that we have to address. The problem, as I see it, is not what product, is that product, which may not even yet be on our radar, gives us the kind of foreign exchange that the oil and gas sector now gives us. And I am not seeing that product in the next 5 years anywhere. That doesn't mean it cannot happen. But in order to do it, sustained activity must go on into encouraging people to seek after that. Because what is going to happen that notwithstanding the fact that we do have the foreign exchange at this point in time, and no matter how much we try to protect it, it is slowly disappearing. And now that the pandemic, now that we are opening back the economy, it's going to start disappearing even faster with foreign travel and things like that. So we are going to have to find that magical product. It can come from the agriculture sector, as you pointed out. And that's why when I say agriculture, I say we cannot think of it as it is now structured. We cannot think about producing and selling the kinds of goods that we are looking at, because we are already, you go onto the CARICOM market in Port of Spain, you see that healthy trade with the Vincentian and Grenadian producers. You know what is one thing that is good about it? Many of them take Trinidad and Tobago dollars because they do a lot of their shopping in Trinidad and Tobago, so it's not at a cost of foreign exchange. And when you go in the market, I'm telling you, my favorite person I go by, say, Watson, this is no ordinary yam, you know, there's Vinci yam. You think I'll offer you local yam? And that's how they put it to you. And they show off about it. So we are not in a good place, largely because we are not producing sufficient foreign exchange by means other than the oil and gas sector. And we are going to have to find ways of doing that. And I'm happy if it's the agricultural sector, but I am not placing my hopes in that at all.
But let us talk about the other thing that you mentioned, which is that you say we can't do it without entrepreneurship. When you look at what is happening now, is that, for instance, the big companies in Trinidad and Tobago, the conglomerates, let's just say, I'm talking about the local companies. I'm not talking about the international companies invested here in energy or in other sectors. A company like Ansa McCall, for instance, or a company like Neil and Massey, what they are doing now is that they are investing abroad.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, what has been happening for the last 5 years is that no investment has been coming in terms of foreign exchange or foreign investment. And we have been exporting foreign exchange and foreign investment abroad as companies try to make themselves viable by internationalizing. Okay? So this is what Massey and Ansa McCall are doing. But so the question is, are there things that perhaps through government collaboration that we can get involved with these companies in, that they can work with either on their own or through financing of other people shareholding in it, we can get into that are export-oriented from Trinidad and Tobago? And the second issue that I want to raise with you is that there has been a lot of fallout from COVID. The number of businesses that have been closed have been many. There is argument about whether it's 6,000 businesses or less. To me, that is not important. What is important is that large numbers of businesses in the small and medium enterprise sector have collapsed. Now, the people in those businesses, some of them at least, would have knowledge, they would have the disposition, they would have the experience of business. And maybe they were in the wrong business. But is it possible to tap that pool, for instance, in a strategy to direct now that entrepreneurial energy into import substitution and foreign exchange earning businesses? They might be small, but with potential to grow. Is there an opportunity there, both with the conglomerate sector and with the small and medium enterprise sector, and perhaps connecting them, that we could tap into and make a difference in the country?
Let me put it this way. Let me start with the latter, the small and medium enterprises. Yes, many of them are folding. Many of them will probably fold even further, not because of COVID, but because of the absence of foreign exchange. Nearly everyone I know depends on foreign exchange. In fact, as I say that, I can think of none in the Chaguanas area, for instance, where I live, that does not depend on foreign exchange. I want to redefine entrepreneurial activity in that regard. It cannot be just earning a living. Take the doublesman. Doublesman earns a reasonable living, many of them, not all, but many of them. Nothing the doublesman uses except the bandana maybe or the pepper sauce is local. Is it possible, for instance, that you can use the doublesman to create a product that you can sell abroad? You brand something like how the Jamaicans have branded the Jamaican patty and sell it abroad, notwithstanding the fact that it is made largely, almost totally of foreign inputs, that it can earn foreign exchange so that when you want to buy your china, you have your own foreign exchange, you're generating enough foreign exchange for you and for me as well. So there is going to have to be a reorientation in the thinking of these businesses if you want to look at it that way, because making money for them is what entrepreneurial activity is. Whether that money requires a large use of foreign exchange is of no importance to them. In fact, they quarrel when they can't get the foreign exchange and then threaten us with the loss of jobs and so on. Quite rightly, I would have done the same if I were there. But that is not what is going to save us. Maybe there's skills that can be honed and can be put, but you really need to be looking more in the area of people who are in the business of trying to conquer foreign markets, trying to use less foreign inputs into their activity. Many of these businesses that are closing are retail sector businesses. As you probably know, the retail sector is heavily foreign exchange dependent. And they're going to run into trouble anyway down the road. If I go now to the bigger ones, I am not sure. The government will have to intervene to make sure that whatever activity they're doing outside redounds to the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. Because investing in a foreign country does not necessarily mean that you will benefit from it. The shareholders will, for sure. Imagine I invest in Barbados and I start earning money in Bajan or US dollars or whatever the case. Will that money come back here in a meaningful way? Do I keep that money abroad in another company? Even government companies sometimes, like they keep their funds abroad because they don't want to mix it up in the local economy and then have difficulty accessing it afterwards. I have a US account here, and I'm sure if I go and ask for it in the US, I'm not going to get. There is that problem that we have, that I am not sure. I am happy for it. I am happy for the Neil and Massey shareholders, the Answer Makal shareholders. I am not sure that even with the success, for instance, of Carib, that Answer Makal can tell me that it earns net amounts of foreign exchange. We all depend, all the activity outside the energy sector depends on people doing, asking for the government to provide them with the foreign exchange. And if you can get your own source of foreign exchange, well, that's good. But does that benefit us? We don't know. If we can have I think what you are trying to talk about is building like a Trinidad and Tobago incorporated. The government will have to then partner with the private sector in order to do that, because I cannot see that the government doing that abroad on its own. But the use of the foreign exchange, the reason why we command that foreign exchange from the oil sector is because they pay their taxes in foreign currency. Yeah? That is the oil comes, the oil is in Trinidad and Tobago soil and in its waters, and the people who extract it sell abroad and they pay their taxes in foreign currency.
All right. Look, we have to bring this to a close because we're coming up to the news, but I've given you 1 minute to talk about this issue is there a confidence problem in Trinidad now, because Trinidad and Tobago now, because of all of these issues that we are raising and the foreign exchange impact on how we see the future? Is there a problem of confidence?
There has always been a confidence issue in Trinidad and Tobago. That is not something that you and I would have seen born yesterday. That has always been around. And I would have liked to speak a lot about the COVID and the opportunities that COVID is providing us to get over what we should have been doing at least since 1962. Why can't we do as Singapore? Why didn't we do as Singapore did since 1962 when we became independent together? And Singapore has gone so far ahead of us now. Why can't we take this opportunity to rebuild from new? What we did in those years was we encouraged a lot of corruption. A lot of the people involved in high places stole the money, and those things were punishable in Singapore, but they were not here. So people became rich from it. And people don't trust the government because they see the government, all governments, as a pack of thieves. And the current one is not giving us any cause with people renting and earning money from these big buildings and so on. You are not going to trust someone who is not leading by example. And that is something that we are going to have to overcome. Yes, trust is an issue. Trust is not something that became an issue yesterday. It has been an issue all my life. People don't trust the government.
All right. We're going to have to close at this point, but I want to take what I hope was an offer that you'd come back and we'll talk about the business of what you might call recalibrating in order to turn what is this COVID tragedy into an opportunity. Would you agree to do that?
Yes, I would like to do that.
Yeah, we will have a discussion on that. So I want to thank you, Professor Watson, for a very, very enlightening and animated conversation here this morning and some thoughtful views about the economy of Trinidad and Tobago and what we have done wrong and what might be possible. And I want to invite you, as I said, to come on again. I will make an arrangement with you. Thank you very, very much. And viewers on MCTV, Multicultural TV, and on U97.5 radio listening, I want to thank you for staying with us and for watching. On now to Andrew Chan and the 7 o'clock news.